when you are in that situation of where you're looking at building cash value. So this week, of course, we're gonna finish up with talking about estate planning. I think is really, really important when we're discussing trust. I think it's really, really important to have a true understanding of what a trust is, and how does a trust typically apply to your particular scenario. Of course, there's a lot of information out there in the world, in the YouTube world. But a lot of times, what's so frustrating is most people have no idea that this is not a one size fits all type industry. When you're talking about a trust alone, there's over 150 different types of trust. There is no one size fits all type trust. You want to make sure, of course, that you understand that before you even try to get a trust, because when you talk about trust, of course, it's a very straight to the point, vague thing that most people possibly they would say, "Hey, I can do it." But of course, every scenario is totally different. When you're dealing with a trust, you want to make sure, of course, if you get land, you get a land trust. You're dealing with your estate, you get a estate trust. When you are dealing with the trust that you need to protect yourself, you get an irrevocable trust. When you get a trust to where you need to do some type of operations in the world, you get what we call a revocable trust. So there's so many different types of trusts out there, and that can pretty much protect you. But the main trust that we're going to talk about tonight is going to be a living trust and an estate trust. And the reason why we want to talk about these particular topics is because, again, there are 150 different types of trusts. And most people, just to be honest, you do not need those types of trust. I see so many times where people will say, "Hey, man, I got a trust fund. I got a trust fund." I say, "Okay, we can do a trust review." And you have a trust, but you have never funded your particular trust. Most people are in situations to where they don't find out that a trust isn't in their best benefit until it's time to utilize it in court. And it's very, very unfortunate that you have to go through that type of scrutiny in order to figure out that what you paid for is not what you needed. So typically, of course, you want to understand that baseline when it comes down to trust. And you also want to be in a situation where you understand that, of course, whatever asset that you have, it some majority of the time it can't just be protected in any type of trust. And you want to understand the laws and how that works. So for people who have no idea what a trust is, what is a trust? A trust is nothing more than just an entity. This particular entity can do everything that you do when it comes down to owning property, when it comes down to selling property, when it comes down to making sure that it protects you. It could speak for you. It could speak for itself. It could be in a situation where it can protect you in so many different ways. Now, when we say it operates as an entity, meaning that it does have an EIN, it does have the ability to outlive any other asset that is actually living, such as a person. If you are familiar with several films that are out there, when it comes down to people that are earning a lot of money throughout the time frame, they're in situations to where when they earn that money and they pass on, they still have control over that money, even though they have passed on. See, a properly structured trust is in a situation to where, of course, there isn't much that you could do while you are alive, and there's nothing much that you could do while you are passed on as well. Your trust operates for you. Your trust is the one that's purchasing. Your trust is the one that's making several decisions on your behalf. Typically, of course, you are the trustee, you are the guarantor that's making that particular decision on that trust, stating that, hey, you want to be in a situation where you would cover everything. So when you're dealing with this estate trust, of course, the main focus is to make sure that you have some type of protection. Okay, so what does that look like? It looks like giving, so you want to protect who you're giving to. Okay. So you want to be in a situation where you understand, number one, who is going to get your assets. Throughout lifetime, we accumulate houses, we accumulate cars, we accumulate debt, we accumulate credit, we accumulate relationships. There's so many things that happen throughout a lifetime to where a lot of times most people they do not take the time to document it. And most people think that it's just very simple. Oh, of course, I'm just going to give it to my children. I'm just going to give it to my children. I want you to look up right now how many children are sitting in probate court today because their parents failed them and they did not do their due diligence with making sure that they properly had some type of estate plan to make sure that they are properly in a situation to where they can transition those funds over. See, what happens is a lot of times most people, they like to play the game in regards to building up their assets or buying their assets, but they never be in a situation where they can protect it. They never in a situation where they can pass it on. So majority of the time, you're stuck in a position to where you may think that you have so much control. Look very closely at celebrities that have passed. They have zero control over their assets after they pass on, and people that are absolute strangers have more control over their assets than their own children. This is very common in this space, whether you're building a net worth of $3 million or a net worth of $3 billion. It is very common for you to have to sit in a probate court in front of a judge and have that judge make a decision on where that house should go. A lot of times, of course, if it's not that scenario, it could be a scenario to where, of course, you have children. If you've, ever had the opportunity to witness what happens at a funeral, is quite devastating, especially when the breadwinner, the head of the household, is passed on. A lot of people get into a lot of friction as family members, and a lot of time, of course, most people, the oldest child, the youngest child, they believe that they could take more than what is expected, and there is no one to speak for them throughout that process. So you want to specify inside of a trust who will receive your assets. We have no idea exactly what could possibly happen to us. I mean, how long we're going to live here, right? And this is not one of those situations to where we're going to preach about making sure that you have everything before you're gone. But it is a situation of understanding responsibilities. When you do acquire that asset, it is your responsibility to know exactly how that asset is going to be paid off. It is your responsibility to know exactly how that asset does not turn into a burden. There's a lot of people that will purchase homes for their children and never pay it off, and now it becomes a burden on the family because you did not take the proper responsibility to understand. So buying a house, again, is just 50% of the problem. Not making sure that you could pay it off is the second half, and then not making sure that you have some type of proper estate planning and make sure you have some type of trust to cover the land patterns is typically another problem, or making sure that you're earning enough income to cover the taxes on the home could be another problem. So a lot of times most people are moving in spaces that, honestly, if you had wise counsel, we wouldn't perish in some of these places. And there's a lot of people that are profiting off of people not understanding this knowledge. And this is exactly why we do these calls. This is exactly why we get hundreds of people that are on these calls every single week. So I hope you all are really, really taking notes. Secondly, of course, a trust will put you in a situation to where, of course, it will show you how those assets will be given. Because too much of anything typically always seem to not be in its best benefit for that person. A lot of times, of course, most people, we will get on calls and they would say, well, I want to make sure that my children are good if anything happens to me, and their child happens to be 5 years old, right? And they want to leave millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to a 5-year-old, and they're not understanding anything about the laws. They have no idea that no state or no judge is going to hand over three, four, $500,000 worth of insurance or any assets to a 5-year-old. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous, right? And I'm pretty sure that you think it's ridiculous as well, but you want to be in a situation to where we understand what you're saying, but you have to be able to communicate your point and what you're looking for. Very, 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 very simply. You have to play the game that, of course, these laws play. Because if something was to happen to you and that home was to be transitioned over to your child, typically it's going to transition to your child's guardian, right? There are cases where, of course, that child may have to go to foster care. There are cases where that child may go to the other parent that you may or may not get along with, right? And of course, that parent will now inherit that asset. So you want to make sure that, of course, you specify how those assets will be given. Will it be given on a benchmark basis? Does this person have to graduate college? Does this person have to be at a certain age? Of course, they have to be over age 18. Of course. Does this person need to be married? Does this person you want to give a person a benchmark? Because if you're talking about building wealth, a lot of times what most people do is they believe that the asset is what the child wants. Okay, and the reason why we're talking about children, because we're talking about generational wealth, right? Of course, the good book says make sure that a person, if you, every great man is in a situation to where they're able to pass on wealth and build wealth to their children's children. So you want to be in a situation where you have these types of conversations, because what else are we doing it for? We're looking to build a legacy. We want to be able to be talked about generation after generation. Now, the only way that you can do that is if you are leaving some type of legacy. But a lot of times, most people they think that a legacy is just leaving money or leaving an asset, and it typically destroys the family. When you leave that person, I've been able to see it personally how people are able to leave hundreds of thousands of dollars to a family, and typically it destroys the family. It destroys the family because, of course, they don't know what to do with the money. They blow the money. They spend the money on different things that possibly may or may not be in the best benefit of them. So you want to be in a situation to where, of course, if you do understand what I'm saying, is that you have some type of order in how you're going to pass this money along. So the best way is to have some type of benchmarks. The best way is to make sure you specify, hey, maybe an age limit, or maybe be in a situation to where you could say, hey, I want to make sure that 50% of these funds will go towards the asset such as a stock. I want to make sure 100% of these funds will go towards the asset such as a stock. And maybe this child has to live off the dividends of the stock and they cannot ever sell it until about 50 years from now. These types of conversations are so important because most people don't believe that they have that much power. And again, these are decisions that you can make whether you're alive or whether you're not alive. A trust comes into huge play even when you're not alive, even when you're in a situation to where, of course, you really want to take advantage of making sure that you have this type of situation in place, even when you're not alive. Okay. Now, of course, um, you want to also have some type of protection. Okay. On the right side, we're talking about protection. Who will make your healthcare decisions? This one is just so important because a lot of times you just don't see it until it actually happens. Um, Making sure that you have some type of medical directive on who was to speak for you if anything was to happen, heart attack, stroke, cancer, you were incapacitated, couldn't speak for yourself. And again, of course, we have such an arrogance about ourselves that, hey, we're healthy, nothing could happen to us. But there's so many times where old partners, I've seen situations to where people haven't been married for 20 plus years, and they're in a situation to where, of course, they're under attack because they cannot speak for themselves. And it's extremely unfortunate that this is typically happening to people. So you want to be in a situation where, of course, if you do take advantage of having some type of trust in place, that you understand that it could protect you even when you're not able to speak for yourself. You want to know exactly, hey, my daughter may have my best interest over this person, or my wife will have sole control over my interests. Hey, I want to make sure that anything that happens, that this person has no input on the last benefit of my life. Hey, if it's just so happened to be life support for 2-3 weeks, I want to be in a situation where you understand that I am at peace with this particular decision. So being able to communicate that on these types of documents are very important. It helps a person be able to make a decision because you are still making that decision and you don't put other people into positions. I mean, that's just such a horrible place to put a person. Such a horrible place to put a person to have to make these decisions for you. All right. Number four, who will make your financial decisions? Again, that goes back to the second half, being able to be in a situation where you understand. I have a grandfather myself. He was 60 years old when he had a stroke. And it was so devastating. It was so shocking to see the aftermath of what happens when a person has a stroke. Um, in this situation, thank God he was still, able to be alive, but he's not able to go back to work. And we're talking about 60 years old. I mean, we're talking about very, very young. And when you are that young and you don't have the ability to communicate for yourself, it is very humiliating. It's very humiliating. And you're in a situation where you accumulated assets, and maybe you were the caregiver of someone else. And a lot of times throughout that process, I watch family members struggle to understand what they should do with the house, or what assets can they even get involved in, or, oh, this person's just turned 60. Typically this retirement account you can't touch until you're 63 or 65. In America, you can't even get retirement until you're 60. So it's so many the conversations that went around that scenario that was so devastating, to watch employees not be willing to even release this person's 401k portfolio because of their own rules and regulations, or not being able to communicate to this person that, hey, this is a family member that is trying to take assets of this person to take care of this person. And it's quite humiliating when you don't have those documents in those times. I really want to stress this. This is something that I've seen firsthand, is where family members and brothers and sisters will fight for who will have some type of control. So you want to make sure, number four, you give that financial decision to someone when it comes down to main assets such as vehicles that are in the money market accounts like 401ks, trust, 401ks, real estate portfolios, stock portfolios, and things like that. Okay. And number five, who would care for your children? If you are taking care of a child, you're taking care of a grandchild, or you're taking care of someone, you want to make sure that you put them in the best position, you put them in the best interest, because if you have someone that you know that will benefit them a little bit better than the person that, of course, a judge will decide, you want to be in a situation where you communicate that as well. So the main idea of having some type of estate plan is, number one, going to be the control. You're going to want to make sure that you have some type of control. That control allows you to be able to communicate for yourself, whether you are here or not. Again, there's positions to where you can act as a trustee on a trust, on the behalf of the trust. You can make decisions on behalf of the trust, and it makes you all a separate entity. Secondly, that privacy. Privacy is so important. Privacy is so important, because you don't have different creditors or different people trying to come and attack you. You have some type of protection to where if anything was to happen, you're typically protected. You have that peace of mind to make sure that things are clear. Clear when you have this. You know that you're protected. You know the assets are protected. You're not afraid of estate taxes or probate taxes, or a judge making decisions to do whatever you want with the assets that you spent your life to build. So you want to make sure that you really, really take advantage. And the trust will act as a will, it will act as a power of attorney, it will act as a medical directive, all within one. And again, we're just talking about a basic estate plan. There's 150 different types of trusts. And this is pretty much one of the basic trusts as well. The process. So typically how the process works is, again, you want to be in a situation where you get some type of analysis. So we have some data that you would input. We have a form that you would input some data on. And when you input that data, you'd be in a situation to where, of course, you're able to communicate specifically what assets that you have. So that person can necessarily understand, of course, what assets that you have. So they can necessarily detail which type of trust would be best for you. Once they're in a situation where they're able to see that, they're going to review those documents, because when you're dealing with the trust, of course, you're also dealing with the state as well, the actual state that you're in. So it's not something that's on the federal side. It is a state regulated situation, because certain states allow certain things and some states, they don't allow certain things. So you want to make sure you're up to date with that particular state as well. And once, of course, that information comes back, now you're in a situation where, of course, you can come back, you can communicate properly. That person communicate properly on that document exactly what you were looking for, and now they can be in a situation where they can present to you a trust that will fully protect you for your particular state, for your particular scenario, and of course for the assets that you currently have. So I think that's really really important to note as well. That again, every state is just a little bit different. So this is not a situation to where, of course, you can just go get any type of trust for any type of scenario. Okay, so we're entering some data, of course. We will do a review of documents. They send us back, of course, what that will look like, a quote, how that will look, and then now they're in a situation where, of course, once we're able to review those documents, we can really go into details in regards to how this is protection for you. So really, really excited for you all. I know, I just wanted to do a baseline of how this will particularly work for you all. A lot of you all are interested in this. I have to talk very broad on this point because this is a scenario to where, of course, most people truly, they just don't understand. They can't understand this scenario to where every it's not one size fits all. So definitely make sure you speak with someone on the team in regards to getting a trust set up. Part two tomorrow, we go into details in regards to the actual documents of a trust. But really, really excited that we're able to even start this series this month. And by the end of the month, you have a full understanding on how to put this trust together. So if you want to go ahead and get a head start within the link, of course, within the chat, you want to go ahead and select that link to be able to go ahead and get a head start on setting your trust up. So I'm really excited. Thank you all for making sure that you all join these calls. You tap into these calls to make sure you get some type of information. Go ahead and get a free consultation. Get that trust review to make sure they start putting your trust together. Get a quote so you can start getting that trust and estate planning together. The link is in the chat, so you should have access to that. And of course, we will definitely be here next week to go over part two. I think we're going to get a lot more information on how that process goes. So really excited for you all. Look out for everything to be sent to your email. Look out for the recordings for this short part one. And I'm really excited to speak to you all this week. Okay.